The wind was dry, the sky was red, and the sun was like fire above the alien desert. Nyla walked ahead, her silver hair flying with the sand. Jason followed behind, wiping sweat from his face. He was tired, but also curious. This was not Earth, it was a strange world full of ancient stories and dead kings. Nyla looked back, her golden eyes serious. She said something in her soft alien voice, but Jason could not understand her words. Instead, he pointed forward to the large, dark shape rising from the sand. It was the pyramid, tall, wide, and older than anything he had seen. The pyramid looked broken in places, like it had been asleep for 1,000 years. The stones were black and smooth with strange marks carved deep. Jason stepped closer and touched the symbols. They were warm, like skin alive. Almost. Nyla shouted at him, pulling his arm back. She shook her head fast and pointed to the sky, then to the ground, then to her chest. She was scared, really scared. Jason had never seen her like this before. He asked her what was wrong, but she only pointed at the pyramid and made an X with her arms. She didn't want him to go near it, but Jason felt something in his chest, like a call, like the stones were speaking to him softly, like a whisper from the past. He slowly walked up the steps, each one large and cracked with age. The wind got louder, but his heart was louder still. He reached the top, where a flat wall stood with no door, only the same glowing marks. He placed his hand on one of them, and the mark lit up under his fingers, red, then blue, then white. The ground shook under his feet. The stones moved with deep, rumbling sounds. The wall split open in front of him, dust flying everywhere. Nyla screamed behind him, but Jason could not move. His eyes were stuck on the open doorway. Inside was only darkness, a tunnel going down into the heart of the pyramid. Nyla ran up and grabbed his arm. She was shaking. She said something again and again, her voice full of fear. Jason turned to her and said he had to go. He had to see what was inside. She looked at him like he was mad. Maybe he didn't know. He only knew the pyramid wanted him to enter. He stepped into the tunnel. The air changed, cold and sweet and heavy with memory. Torches on the walls lit up one by one, without any fire, showing images of humans, but not like him. They wore armor and strange clothes with stars in their eyes. Nyla followed slowly, her body shaking, her tail low, her hand touching the wall like it was sacred. She whispered that this was forbidden. No alien had ever come inside. No human had ever touched it. It was death for anyone who tried. But Jason was not dead. He was walking deeper, the floor under his boots glowing with each step, the walls showing him more images: a war, a fire, a human king, and an alien queen standing together holding hands, and behind them a pyramid rising into the sky. They reached a large round room, the ceiling high like a dome, with a stone table in the center. The table was shaped like a star. It had 7 points and a glowing crystal in the middle. The crystal pulsed with light like a heartbeat. Jason stepped closer, and the light grew brighter. Nyla screamed his name, but it was too late. His hand touched the crystal, and the room lit up completely. The dome above turned into sky, showing stars moving fast like time was spinning backward. A voice spoke loud and deep. "Welcome, traveler," it said in a language Jason could understand somehow, even though he never learned it before. "Welcome to the cradle of the makers." Jason looked around, his heart pounding. "Who are the makers?" he asked. The voice did not answer right away. Instead, it showed him a new vision: the earth spinning in space, then earth breaking apart into ships flying across space, carrying humans to other stars. "You are the blood of the last maker," the voice said. "Only you can open the door, only you can wake the stars." Jason turned to Nyla, who looked like she had seen a ghost, her mouth open, her eyes full of fear and wonder. She whispered something soft. "You were never just a visitor," she said. "This place is yours." Jason felt cold and hot at the same time. He looked at his hands, glowing softly with the same light as the crystal. He had no answers, only questions. But the pyramid was not done yet. The wall behind the table opened, showing stairs going down even deeper. Nyla grabbed his hand this time, not to stop him, but to go with him. Together they stepped into the dark. Once more behind them, the crystal pulsed again, like it was alive, like it was waiting for him, waiting for the human who could unlock the past, one who touched the forbidden door. Asterisk. The stairs were narrow and deep, made of dark stone that felt smooth under their feet. The air was heavy, like it carried old secrets. Jason moved slowly, holding the wall with one hand, while Nyla followed close behind her, breathing quick and careful. They could hear a low humming sound, like the pyramid was alive and awake. For the first time in ages, at the bottom of the stairs, they entered a new chamber wide and round with high walls that glowed faint blue. The walls were covered in drawings. Not alien drawings, but human faces, ships, stars, weapons, all carved deep into the stone. Jason walked along the wall, running his fingers across the images, feeling a strange warmth like the wall knew him. Nila stood still at the center, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. She whispered in her language, but Jason understood her somehow. She was saying this place is a memory of humans, a memory locked inside the pyramid until now. In the middle of the chamber stood a tall pillar, reaching to the ceiling, the top of it open like a flower, revealing a glowing orb of light that floated just above the stone. The light was not bright, but it pulled Jason closer, like it was calling to him, like it knew his name. As he stepped near the orb, it spoke not with sound, but with thought. The words entered his mind like a dream. Clear and strong, welcome heir of the first sun, you have returned, and the way is open again. Jason blinked, unsure if it was real, but the voice continued, saying, this place is yours. Your kind built it long ago, before time was counted, before stars were mapped, before aliens were known. Nila gasped as the orb changed shape, showing a human figure, tall and dressed in silver armor. The face was kind but proud. The voice came from the figure now, saying, I am a memory, I am the guide left behind by the first makers, and I will help you remember. Jason looked at Nila, who nodded, though her face was pale. She said quietly, this is your past, not just Earth. Your blood belongs to the stars. Your people were not lost. They were waiting for someone like you to return. The figure raised its hand, and the chamber changed. Walls moved, showing tunnels and doors that were once hidden, now open with glowing lights leading the way. The voice said, you must complete the path, 7 trials of memory, each one will show you more, each one will prepare you. Jason nodded, though he felt fear in his chest. He knew he had to go forward, not just for himself, but for the truth waiting in the deep. He asked where to go, and the voice pointed to the first door, which opened slowly with a loud, echoing sound. Inside the next room, the floor was covered in symbols glowing red, blue, and green, and in the middle was a tall statue of a woman holding a staff, her eyes glowing white. The voice said, this is the trial of history. Speak the names of the lost, and you may pass. Jason stared at the floor, unsure what to say, but then images rushed into his mind. Names, places, wars. Piece of voice in his head whispering over and over the names of old kings, queens, soldiers, builders, and dreamers. He spoke them aloud, slowly, carefully, one by one, as the lights changed with each word. Nila watched in silence, her hands clenched together as if in prayer. She had never seen anything like this. Her people always feared the pyramid, but now she saw it as something more, something powerful, something human. The lights on the floor turned white, and the statue lowered her staff. The door on the other side of the room opened with a soft hum. The voice said, you have passed the first trial. Your memory is waking, and your path continues. Jason felt dizzy, but stronger, like something inside him had been unlocked. A door, not just in the pyramid, but in his soul. He turned to Nila and smiled, though his eyes showed confusion and wonder. She smiled back, small but real, her fear turning slowly into faith. Together they stepped into the next hallway, where the walls were glass, showing stars moving like rivers, the galaxies spinning around them faster and faster until it slowed and showed a small blue planet, Earth, shining in the dark. The voice returned, saying, this was your home once, and it will be again, but the path is not easy. Others will fear you, some will fight you, but if you remember who you are, the stars will follow you. Jason reached out and touched the glass. The image of Earth flickered, then turned into fire, then into light, then into a map full of lines and symbols, strange paths leading to places unknown behind them. The orb faded, the chamber closed, the voice fell silent. Only the path ahead was clear, only the journey forward remained. The memory had started, and now it could not be stopped. Jason looked ahead, his eyes full of fire, his heart full of questions, his steps slow but sure. Nila walked beside him, her fear slowly fading, replaced by something new, something dangerous, something like hope. Together they walked deeper into the pyramid, not knowing what waited, but knowing they could not turn back. Not now, not ever. The pyramid had opened, and the human had answered. The past had returned, and the stars were watching. The hallway was narrow, with walls made of smooth, dark stone that glowed faintly with blue light. Jason walked ahead while Nila stayed close behind, both silent, both tense. The air had changed again. It was colder, thicker, filled with something they could not name something ancient, something waiting as they reached the end of the hallway. A tall door appeared, covered in symbols, pulsing slowly with red light. Jason placed his hand near the center of the door, and it opened without sound, revealing a chamber unlike the others, wide and circular, with 7 statues standing in a perfect circle, each statue holding a different object in its hand. In the center of the room was a pool of water, still and black like glass. The floor was marked with glowing lines that connected the statues to the pool. Jason stepped forward slowly, his eyes scanning everything, while Nyla whispered that this was the trial room, the one no alien ever dared to enter, the one her people spoke of only in fear and silence. The voice returned not from the walls but from inside their minds, saying, "This is the second trial, the trial of judgment. You must face the shadows of the makers. You must walk the path of memory and truth. Only then will the gate open. Only then will the stars listen." Jason looked at Nyla, unsure what it meant, but before he could speak, the pool of water rippled and a new figure rose from it, a human figure made of light and smoke. Eyes glowing, white face calm and strange, the figure said, "You must be tested not by power but by choice, not by strength but by memory." These statues began to move, slowly turning their heads toward Jason, their arms raising the objects they held one by one: a sword, a book, a crystal, a scale, a fire, a key, and a mirror. The figure said, "Choose one and face what it brings. The one you choose will open your path, but will also show you what you hide." Jason hesitated, then walked to the statue, holding the mirror. It was simple, round, and smooth, but the reflection it gave was not his. It showed a boy, younger, scared, alone, standing under a burning sky with shadows all around. Jason touched the mirror and the room changed at once. Now he stood on a different floor, sky above him red with smoke, the sound of screaming in the air, buildings broken, fire everywhere. Nyla was gone, the statues gone. Only Jason and the burning world remained. He realized he had seen this before, in dreams, maybe in memory, maybe from another life. A child stood in front of him, looking up, eyes full of tears, clothes torn. The child reached out and asked, "Why did you leave us?" Jason felt pain, sharp and deep, though he did not understand. The child disappeared and another figure came, this one older, eyes full of anger, yelling words Jason could not hear, only feel: betrayal, loss, sorrow. Jason dropped to his knees, gripping his head, the voices inside him getting louder, the sky above him breaking apart, showing stars falling like fire. The figure from the mirror returned and said, "This is your shadow. This is your past. You must accept it or be broken by it." Jason stood slowly, breathing hard, sweat on his face. He whispered, "I do not know them, but I feel them." The figure said, "They are you, and you are them now. Remember not who you are, but what you must become." The burning world faded, and the chamber returned quiet and cold. Nyla was back, watching him, eyes wide with worry. She ran to him, but Jason waved her back. He needed a moment. He had changed something in him, had opened something. The mirror statue lowered its arm, and the pool in the center began to glow white. The voice said, "You have faced your shadow. You have accepted pain. Now step forward and claim your path." Jason walked to the pool, the light rising around him, soft and warm. It lifted him gently into the air for a breath, then lowered him back. The room grew brighter. The door behind the statues opened, showing a staircase going even deeper. Nyla walked to him and placed her hand on his shoulder softly. She said, "I saw nothing, but I felt everything. Your pain, your fear, your strength. You are not just human. You are something more, something new." Jason nodded, though words were hard to find. He looked at the statues one last time, then turned to the stairs. He knew this was only the beginning. The pyramid was not showing him wonders. It was showing him truth, hard truth, heavy truth. They stepped onto the staircase, the door behind them closing slowly, the chamber falling silent once more. Only their steps echoed. Now only their journey remained. The pyramid had judged, and Jason had passed. The shadows had come, and he did not run. The stars were waking, and the trial was not over yet. Asterisk, the staircase twisted downward like a spiral, with each step glowing under their feet. The walls beside them were smooth with lines of light, flowing like rivers of stars. Jason walked with his eyes fixed ahead, while Nyla followed close, her breath slow, her heart full of questions she did not ask. At the bottom they entered a new chamber, large and bright, with walls made of crystal and machines floating silently in the air. The floor was a circle of light with patterns that changed as they moved across it. In the center stood a tall structure like a tower with rings spinning Around it slowly like planets in orbit. Jason stepped closer, feeling something deep inside him. Pull like a magnet, calling his blood, his bones, his soul. The voice returned, this time calm and warm, saying, "Welcome to the heart of the pyramid, welcome." To the chamber of Originala stood still, staring at the floating machines and strange symbols. Dancing around them, she whispered that her people never spoke of this place. Never even guessed it could exist, a place where light was alive and machines moved like thoughts. The voice said, "This is the place of truth, where the blood of the makers speaks, where history is not told but remembered. Only one of the line may unlock it. Only one who carries the ancient fire may enter the core and awaken." The memory. Jason reached out toward the tower, and it opened slowly like a flower of metal, revealing a crystal chamber. Inside, a chair rose from the center with wires like vines wrapping around it, waiting for someone, waiting for him. The voice said, "Place your hand upon the heart and let the code decide." He stepped forward, placing his hand on the glowing panel beside the chair. The light turned red, then blue, then white, then gold. The tower shook slightly and the rings spun faster. The voice said, "Identity confirmed, bloodline true, memory access granted." Jason sat in the chair as the wires moved gently, wrapping around his arms, his legs, his head. Without pain, without fear, the chamber grew silent and the lights dimmed. Then his eyes closed and the memory began. He saw stars falling like rain, cities made of light, humans with wings made of fire, ships flying through black space with the sound of thunder. He saw the earth long before it was small and alone. He saw the makers standing on mountains, speaking to stars, building gates that opened to other galaxies. He saw a war not between humans and aliens, but between those who remembered and those who forgot. He saw betrayal from within, the makers hiding the truth, breaking the code, sealing the pyramid and fleeing into silence. Then he saw a child, a boy with eyes like his, taken from the stars, hidden on Earth, given a new name, a new life, waiting for the call, waiting to return. Jason realized he was not the first, he was the key, the last of the line, the only one left who could unlock the heart of the makers. The memory ended, and Jason opened his eyes. The lights returned, and the chair released him slowly, gently. Nyla ran to him, holding his hand, asking what he saw, what he felt, what he remembered. He looked at her and said softly, "I saw everything. I saw where we came from. I saw why we were lost and why we must rise again." The voice said, "You are now awakened. Your blood has spoken. Your memory is whole. You are the last light of the first flame. You are the one who must decide the future." Jason turned toward the far wall, where a new door had opened wide and silent. Beyond it lay more chambers, more trials, more truths, but he knew now that he was not just a visitor, not just an explorer, not just a human. He was a son of the stars, a child of the makers, a seed planted long ago, now ready to grow, now ready to shine. Nila touched his face, her eyes full of wonder. She said, "The galaxy is not ready for you. They will fear you. They will try to stop you." Jason nodded, saying, "Maybe, but they will know us again. They will remember who we are." They walked through the new door into a hallway of gold, where images floated in the air, showing planets, rising ships being built, stars being born, all by the hands of humans, long forgotten, now remembered once more. The hallway ended at a large gate sealed with 7 locks, each glowing with a different color. The voice said, "This is the final seal to the path of power each trial will give you one key. You have passed 2-5 remain. Beyond this gate lies the signal. Beyond the signal lies the awakening." Jason placed his hand on the gate, and 2 of the 7 locks opened with a soft sound. The rest remained still, waiting, silent, unbroken. He turned back to Nela, his eyes clear, his voice strong, saying, "We keep going. We finish what they started. We take back our name, our fire, our future." Nela nodded, and together they turned toward the next path, the pyramid behind them alive with light and memory, the blood of the makers flowing again. The stars above would soon learn the truth. The humans were not lost. They were coming home. The new passage was long and wide, with dark stone walls and a high ceiling covered in silver symbols that shimmered with quiet light. The air was thick and still, as if waiting for a breath that had not come in 1,000 years. Jason walked slowly, his steps steady, while Nyla followed in silence, her eyes moving from wall to wall, her heart beating like a drum in her chest. At the end of the passage stood a great door made of black metal, with carvings of warriors locked in battle, their faces were human, their weapons glowing with strange light. Jason stepped closer and the door opened with a sound like thunder, revealing a chamber, so large it felt like the sky itself had come down to rest inside the pyramid. Inside the chamber, 12 giant statues stood in a circle, each one different in shape and armor, each one holding a different weapon made of stone and crystal. The floor between them was smooth and black like glass, with lines of gold running in every direction, leading to the center, where a small platform rose from the ground. Jason and Nyla stepped onto the platform and the door behind them closed without warning. The light dimmed, the silence grew heavier, and then the voice returned, speaking with power and weight, saying, "This is the trial of strength. This is the chamber of the 12. This is where the guardians rest and where they must rise." The statues began to glow, their weapons lighting up, their eyes opening one by one as if waking from a long sleep. The voice said, "Only the chosen may face them, only the awakened may stand, and only the true may pass. You must prove your right, not by blood, but by skill, not by memory, but by action." Jason looked at Nayla, who stepped back, her eyes wide, her hand over her mouth. She had heard of the guardians in stories told by elders and whispers. They were protectors and judges, built by the first makers to guard the deepest truth. None had ever faced them, none had ever dared. One of the statues moved, stepping forward with a slow, heavy sound, its blade raised high, glowing with red light. Jason stood firm, his heart pounding, his breath slow. The statue swung the blade down fast, but Jason moved quicker, his body reacting before his mind, his feet shifting, his hands rising to block. Even though he held no weapon, the statue attacked again, faster this time, its strikes heavy and sharp, but Jason dodged them all, each movement like a dance, each step like a memory returning. He saw flashes in his mind, battles from a time before, fire and metal and dust. He remembered standing in fields of stars, leading warriors, shouting orders, facing monsters made of void. Second statue joined the fight, then a third, then a fourth, each one with a different weapon, a different style, but Jason moved between them with grace and force, his hands empty but strong, his body glowing with a soft light that grew with every strike. He blocked with arms that should have broken, he pushed back with strength that should not have been. His Nila watched with tears in her eyes, unable to speak, unable to move. She saw the truth in every motion. Jason was not just a man, he was a warrior from the stars, reborn with power sleeping in his blood, now waking at last. One by one the statues slowed their attacks, each one stepping back, bowing their heads. The voice spoke again, saying, "The guardians have seen your truth. They accept your fire, they honor your strength, and the trial is complete." The light returned, the statues returned to stone, and the platform beneath Jason glowed white, lifting him slowly into the air before placing him back down. The floor opened at the center, revealing a crystal shaped like a flame. The third key to the final gate. Jason took the crystal in his hand, and it turned into light, vanishing into his skin. The gate above now showing 3 lights open, 4 still locked, waiting. He turned to Nayla, his face calm, his eyes full of fire. She walked to him slowly, her hand shaking as she touched his arm. She said, "I do not know what you are, but I believe in you now more than ever. You are not one of us, but you are more than any of us." Jason looked up at the statues one more time, then turned to the next path that had opened, a dark tunnel with wind blowing through it like breath from the past. The guardians had tested him, and he had passed, but he knew the hardest trials were still ahead. They stepped into the tunnel together, leaving the chamber behind, the light fading, the silence returning. Only the sound of their steps and the promise of what waited in the deep. The stars were watching, and the pyramid was alive. The human had awakened the guardians, and nothing would be the same again. The tunnel was narrow and long, with walls made of silver stone that reflected soft lights like stars trapped in glass. The wind that blew through it was cold and full of whispers like voices speaking from far away. Jason kept walking, his steps steady, while Nyla stayed close behind, her eyes fixed on the floor, as if afraid to look up. At the end of the tunnel they reached a gate made of crystal, shaped like a circle with strange symbols spinning across its surface. Jason placed his hand on the gate, and it melted into air, revealing a chamber that looked more like the inside of a star than any room he had ever seen. The walls were wide and curved, filled with floating lights and spinning maps of galaxies, each one moving slow and smooth, like dancers in space. A soft blue glow filled the room, and in the center floated a sphere of golden light, pulsing like a heartbeat. As they stepped closer, the voice returned not with power, but with sadness, saying, "This is the archive of silence, this is the memory that was buried, this is the truth." No one was meant to find. Jason looked around, his eyes wide as he saw Earth floating inside one of the maps, small and blue with lines connecting it to other stars, but each line was broken. Like a web torn by a great storm, Nyla stepped beside him and whispered, "This is your home, and it is alone," the voice said. Once Earth was the center of the network, once humans moved through the stars as kings and builders, as peacekeepers and dreamers. But a great fear came from within, a fear that their power would grow too large, that they would never stop, so the other races broke. The gates sealed the paths, erased the records, and left Earth behind. Jason stepped back, the words heavy in his chest. He asked why they would do that, why they would abandon their own. The voice said, "They did not abandon you, they feared you, they saw in you the power to shape all things, and they knew they could not control what they could not match." Noah fell to her knees, the truth cutting through her like a blade. All her life she had been told humans were new, were weak, were lost, but now she saw they were the first. They were the light that others tried to hide. Jason walked toward the golden sphere and placed his hand on it, and the room changed at once, showing images of old cities floating in the sky, machines flying without sound, towers reaching into space, humans standing beside aliens as leaders. Not servants, not allies, but creators. He saw a council of stars made of every race with a single seat empty. The seat of Earth, the seat of the makers, and he heard their voices shouting their fears, saying they would not be ruled, they would not be shaped, they would not be remembered. The images faded, and the voice said, "You are the last of the line, you are the memory that cannot be erased. The path now opens only if you wish it, only if you choose to take back what was taken." Jason looked at Nyla, her face wet with tears, her body shaking. She said, "If you bring this truth to the stars, there will be war. There will be fear, there will be blood." Jason nodded, saying, "Maybe, but there will also be hope, there will be light, there will be a name." Remembered again. The floor beneath them opened, revealing a deep stair with lights leading down. The voice said, "The signal waits below. Once sent, it will awaken the old network, it will call the lost stations, it will light the gates, and the stars will." Here Jason turned to the map one last time, watching Earth spin in the dark. He placed a finger on it and whispered, "We are not broken, we are not forgotten, we are not done." He and Nyla stepped down into the new path, the gate above closing behind them, the chamber fading into silence. The truth now a fire in their hearts, one that could not be put out. The stars would learn that the past had not died. The human was not a visitor, he was the echo of the beginning, and he was ready to speak again. The stairs went down into the deepest part of the pyramid. The light grew warmer, the air heavy with a soft humming sound like a song sung by the stone itself. Jason walked with steady steps, his hand on the wall, while Nyla followed close behind, her fingers brushing the carvings as if they were alive. At the bottom they found a great chamber shaped like a star with 7 long arms stretching from the center, each arm ending in a glowing crystal. Already 3 crystals shone bright with the light of trials past, and the other 4 were still dark, waiting, silent. Still the voice returned, soft and deep, saying, "You have seen the truth, you have passed the trials. You now stand at the edge of the beginning." In the center of the chamber stood a tall device shaped like a tree, made of glass and gold, with its roots deep in the floor and its branches touching the ceiling. Each branch held a different light, spinning slow and calm. The voice said, "This is the beacon of the makers." Once it spoke to the stars, once it joined worlds, once it lit the sky with hope. Now it sleeps, but your hand may wake it. Jason stepped toward the beacon, his heart heavy with everything he had learned, his mind full of faces he had never met yet somehow remembered. Nyla stood behind him, watching in silence, her hands closed tight, her breath slow and cold. The voice said, "If you light the beacon, the stars will hear, the forgotten will rise, the gates will open, and the galaxy will know your name. But if you choose silence, the past will stay buried, and the fire will fade for another 1,000 years." Jason placed his hand near the beacon, but stopped. He turned to Nyla, his voice quiet, asking, "What would you do if you were me?" She looked at him with tears in her eyes, saying, "I am not you. I have not seen what you have seen. I have not heard what you have heard, but I believe in you. I believe in what you are." He looked at the crystals, then at the ceiling where images now formed, showing stars, awakening gates, lighting up ships, coming to life, human voices singing across the dark. He saw fear and joy, war and peace, the return of a name long hidden. The Voice said, "This is the final moment, not of power, but of will, not of destiny, but of choice. Do you speak? Or do you stay silent? Do you rise, or do you remain in shadow?" Jason stepped forward, placed his hand on the center of the beacon, and the chamber filled with white light. The crystals lit one by one, the arms of the star pulsed, the branches of the beacon glowed, and the ground trembled with a sound like thunder from the bones of the world. Above, the pyramid light burst into the sky, like a tower reaching to the stars, like a torch burning in the blackness, calling all who once knew the name of Earth, calling all who once feared the light of the Maker. Snilla covered her eyes as the chamber shook, as the stars above blinked awake. Jason stood with arms open, eyes wide, heart full of memory, full of fire, full of truth. He felt something inside him break and rebuild, something not human and not alien, something older than both. Of the voice said, "The signal has been sent. The gates will open, the path will return, and the old world will rise again. Your name will be the first word of a new song." Jason turned to Nyla and smiled, though his face was wet with tears, his voice strong. He said, "We go home, not just to Earth, but to the stars, to all that was lost. We go not to conquer, but to remind them who we are." She took his hand and nodded, the light around them fading to soft gold. The chamber now calm, the trials complete, the silence now full of meaning. The pyramid, no longer a tomb, but a beginning. Above, in the sky, far across space, the old stations lit up one by one. Stars flickered like eyes opening, ships long dead rose from sleep, gates once sealed cracked with golden lines, and a name spoken in secret returned to the winds of the galaxy. Jason and Nayla stepped out of the pyramid together into the light of a new dawn, not knowing what would come, only knowing that it had begun, that they had begun. Somewhere deep in the void, the galaxy listened. The humans had returned.